Hi everyone, welcome to your week 1 video. So, what is instructional design? What comes to your mind when you hear the word instructional design? Is it books? Computers? Maybe someone on a video? Is it someone thinking deeply about a topic or some kind of subject matter? Someone experiencing frustration over their learning experience and what they're learning about? Maybe it looks like this. This is ADDIE, a well-known framework for designing instruction. Note that I did not call it a model. ADDIE is not a model. ADDIE is a guide for designing and developing instruction. It has origins in the field of engineering, where it's used as an approach to design effective solutions to problems. So our field felt as if applying those principles to instructional products could be a way to improve the way we design and develop instruction. At first glance, instructional design from this perspective looks like a bunch of arrows and boxes. But really, those arrows and boxes are just a tool that help instructional designers understand their work conceptually. What we do as instructional designers is a lot more than arrows and boxes. It can be exciting, it can be challenging, it can be fun. There are often many problems to solve, and organization is really the key, which is where tools like ADDIE come in. This is another well-known model, and yes, this one's a model. This model by Dick and Carey is more prescriptive. It indicates that you do this and then you do that. Of course, there are more arrows and boxes because of it. Here's another one, and hey, there are no arrows. But it still has descriptive and prescriptive information about designing instruction. This is actually the one that's in our textbook and the one that we'll be using throughout the course of this semester. We're going to come back to this model in the second half of this video, but just know that these instructional design guides and models are available for you to use as tools that can help you keep yourself in check as you design instruction. So, what does learning look like? If we can figure out what learning looks like, we can figure out what instruction that leads to learning should look like. Does learning look like this? What do you notice about the people in this picture? Maybe that they're engaged, interested, motivated? Is that really learning? I'd like to think so. What about this guy? Does learning look like this? It seems like he's listening to something while he's reading. Is that learning? Or how about this? Is this what you're used to seeing learning look like? An important question that we need to ask ourselves is, what is the difference between engagement and frustration? What's the difference between effective instruction and everything else? What makes the difference between someone who's an engaged learner, like the ones on your left, and a frustrated, unsuccessful learner, like the ones on your right? One way to figure out these answers is to ask yourself, what makes learning better or worse for you? Is it something about the way the instruction is designed, or about how the materials are designed? Or maybe it's the environment or experience itself. It could even be a little bit of all of it. Think about the better learning experiences that you've had. What makes them better than others? Take a minute to think about it. I'm going to go ahead and guess at what may have made those experiences better for you. The instruction probably met your needs, possibly even in a way that you didn't know you needed. Or maybe it was just that you knew what was expected of you. Maybe you even got to practice your skills, and someone was there to provide feedback on what you were doing. Maybe you were so engaged in practicing your skills that you stopped worrying about your grades for a moment. And maybe, just maybe, when you got to that assessment, you weren't worried because you practiced the skills, got feedback on them, and felt prepared for an assessment where you knew what was expected of you. So, back to our overarching question, what is instructional design? It's all of those things. It's attending to the learner's needs, having clear instructional objectives or outcomes, allowing learners to practice concepts and skills, and aligning assessments to those objectives in practice. The real key here is that instructional design is a system. We all use systems to make our lives easier. Maybe you have a system for remembering to pay your bills, or for getting your kids out the door in the morning, or for organizing the files that you create and submit for school. Whatever it is, systems help us better complete tasks with a high level of accuracy over and over again. That's why ADDIE and instructional design models look like they do. They all begin with analysis: who the learners are, what instruction they need, what the environment's like, what the problem is, and what the solution might be. Next is figuring out how to get your instruction to meet the needs of your learners, which is really figuring out how to get your learners to walk away from instruction having met those needs. To do this, you use information obtained during your analysis to write instructional objectives. These tell you what the instructional goal is and what objectives will help you meet that goal. Next, you figure out what steps learners need to do to meet that goal and those objectives. How will they practice? When and how will they receive feedback on how they're meeting those objectives? What does assessment look like? Once you know what your learners are going to do, you'll figure out your methods. How will your instruction be implemented? You'll develop materials and package them together for learners to use in order to meet the objectives. And once you do that, you'll need to evaluate how it all went. What did the learners think? Did they learn what you expected them to learn? This is the part of instructional design that will tell you what you need to keep, what you need to fix, and what should be thrown away altogether. This is instructional design in a nutshell. You start with your learners, then the objectives, then the methods, and the evaluation. These key components will help you create instructional experiences in your context. As our textbook indicates, the instructional design approach considers instruction from the perspective of the learner rather than from the perspective of the content. Wikipedia also has a great definition from Dr. David Merrill that says, instructional design is the practice of creating instructional experiences which make the acquisition of knowledge and skill more efficient, effective, and appealing. So by going through the process of analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation, we are able to make design efficient, effective, and appealing in a way that yields the acquisition of knowledge and skills for our learners. One thing to note is that instructional design takes on a course level focus. A course is not a lesson. A course is like a curriculum that takes on a series of objectives that come together to achieve the instructional goal. A lesson is a plan for achieving one or more objectives. A lesson is likely one of many that helps learners achieve a course's instructional goal. For instance, you might have an instructional goal that sales employees form a pitch about the features and benefits of services in order to close sales. So you'd create instruction that accomplishes this, and you probably have several different objectives that sales employees have to accomplish. It's those objectives collectively that help the employees meet the instructional goal. One objective likely won't help them meet the goal, but a combination of several lessons and several objectives help the employees bring everything together to achieve the larger instructional goal. As I previously mentioned, our textbook uses this model. It's more detailed than ADDIE, but look at it closely. Do you see ADDIE? Is there analysis, design, development, implementation? How about evaluation? What about now? The great thing about all instructional design models is that no matter which one you prefer to use, the ADDIE framework is present in all of them, even in the one used by our textbook, which is definitely more detailed, but the details are really important. The details within each aspect of ADDIE are what make it such a successful framework, a framework that grounds and guides all of the models. With our textbook model here, we start with an instructional problem and move clockwise around the model. The instructional problem becomes your instructional goal or terminal objective. We'll talk about that next week. And this is what learners should know and or be able to do by the time they finish your course. Then you move to the learner characteristics and task analysis, which helps you resolve the instructional problem. The success of your instructional design really hinges on the quality of work that you do during this analysis stage. And the needs assessment is a big part of that. It's where we do our analysis and determine the needs of learners. The success of your instructional design hinges on this quality of work that you're doing. Essentially, the needs assessment is concerned with the problem, the people involved, the places, and the desired performance. Do you have a true instructional problem, and what's the nature of it? Who are the people that are involved with that problem? Does your environment impact the problem or solution? What performance or outcomes do you expect of the learners? All 4 of these components, the problem, the people, the places, and the performance, come together to inform your instruction, and often one can inform or impact another. Let's look at an example. Soggy fried chicken. Let's say the local manager of Zaxby's comes to you, the instructional designer, because she notices that her customers are not satisfied with the crispiness of their fried chicken. Luckily, the chicken is always cooked. However, it's often soggy or completely overcooked. The manager wants you to develop instruction to solve this problem and result in better quality fried chicken. You start thinking about what could cause all of these problems and how your instruction could help. And it's not that hard to envision what instruction to correct this problem could look like. Easy, you think, because it's not that difficult to imagine a sequence of instruction that could teach employees the process of cooking fried chicken, what good fried chicken looks like, how to cook fried chicken, maybe get a little expertise from someone who's experienced in cooking the chicken well, what to look out for maybe, and that sort of thing. This is going to be easy money, you think, but not so fast. The problem and the solution are clear. The problem is employees are not cooking the chicken properly, and the solution is instruction is needed to correct the problem. But you, as the instructional designer, start thinking about the people. You wonder, haven't they had training on how to cook fried chicken? Why do they need it again? Is there something about the place or the environment that might be causing this issue? What do the employees think the problem is? You know what their manager thinks, but you have to start talking to the people that are actually doing the cooking to find out more. After you talk to the people who are doing the cooking, you come to find out that they have, in fact, had extensive training in cooking fried chicken. However, there's a major issue that's causing the problem, and it's really not related to the instruction. The timer that times the chicken while it's in the fryer has been broken for weeks. A new one was requested, but it hadn't come in yet, so the employees were trying to cook by sight and/or trying to create their own timing scheme, which resulted in the soggy chicken as well as some entirely too crispy chicken. You tell the manager that you will indeed take on the project, and that first and foremost he needs to order and install a new timer. Then you develop a poster that contains the various shades of fried chicken from too soggy to too crispy, so you can train people to not only rely on the timer, but also to have a much better way of judging by sight whether the chicken is fried enough. They can recognize the properly fried chicken from this poster in the cooking areas, which resolves the problem in less than a week. The point here is that a lot of problems are non-instructional problems, and not all problems are instructional. While the actual problem in this scenario, the lack of a timer, was not an instructional problem, you were actually able to identify, based on one of the employees' solutions of cooking by sight, that there was, a potential instructional problem, which resulted in the job aid or poster that you created. So your job for IDA number 1 and the culminating project for this course is going to be to find an instructional problem where the cause is primarily a lack of knowledge or skill. This is what the needs assessment is really for. When you conduct your needs assessment, you're going to try to figure out the root of the problem. Is it really a lack of knowledge or skills? If they really lack those knowledge or skills, in what degree? To what degree? Do they need a refresher course? Maybe a job aid? To what degree is the environment a problem? In what degree are the knowledge and skills the problem? You'll find this out by talking to the people. Let them show you what the problem is. Observe them in their environment. Watch people. Watch people do it successfully and unsuccessfully. How can your instruction help people who are struggling achieve success? All of this information will help you in deciding whether to design instruction or an intervention and what it should look like. So the audience analysis is a major component of your needs assessment. After identifying the problem, you'll need to identify your learners' characteristics so you can take them into account when designing and developing your instruction. Some of the things you'll need to ask yourself are, Have they already had training in this area that wasn't successful? If so, what was that training? You don't want to reproduce something that wasn't successful. You'll also want to know how many learners are going to be taking your instruction. Where will they be when they do it? What prior knowledge do they have? What other factors might impede their learning? And what are their demographics? The next component is the environmental analysis. This is the time where you identify characteristics about the environment that you'll need to take into account when designing and delivering the instruction. Things that you might ask yourself are, was their original training face-to-face? If so, you might want to try a hybrid or online environment. If you do, you'll need to know if they have access to computers and access to the internet. If you're developing something for a mobile device, you'll need to know if all of your learners can access your instruction via a mobile device. Maybe some of them don't have one. Is there some sort of learning software that you could use? What about the network bandwidth capabilities? That could be a huge factor that could impede your instruction. Are there any support tools that are available for you? What kind of time is realistically available for this instruction? How can you make the best use of that time? Are there any other factors that you might be able to think about? The final component of your needs analysis is the task or function analysis. This is the time where you identify the key knowledge, skills, tasks, and behaviors that learners should be able to perform after completing your course. You might review any existing materials, and these could be from other experts in the field you're designing the instruction for. You might do some searches online to find this information. You might look at some evaluation data and benchmarks. You might observe people doing it successfully. You might survey a group of your learners to find out about their attitudes and perspectives. You might interview a variety of stakeholders such as instructors, learners, and again, those who are doing it successfully. You might even use some other methods that help you identify what learners should be able to do after completing your course. Don't get overwhelmed though. Here's what to do. Remember these things. If you don't know, ask someone. If they don't know, ask someone else. Do some of your own legwork ahead of time and be resourceful. Be efficient and only get relevant information. Don't get sidetracked. And this is always my favorite, avoid analysis paralysis. My doctoral advisor used to always say this. And by this, I mean, don't get stuck going in circles with all the data in your head. If you feel like you can't make sense of it, talk it out with someone. This can really help you modify or confirm the way you're looking at the instructional problem. So IDA number 1 is going to cover the first quarter of the MRK, or the textbook model, from instructional problem to task analysis. The assignment instructions for IDA number 1 are in both the course assignment instructions folder and the week 1 activities folder. For IDA number 1, you will identify a problem in your professional context that you think instruction can address. You're going to submit a summary of your analysis, which will include a clear statement of the problem, including the context or background from which it originates. You'll also have a description of your understanding of the audience, environment, and task function. It will also include a clear statement of the primary need or needs that your instruction will address. The IDA number 1 assignment instructions include a section on how to go about doing this, and I highly suggest that you read through this section. It suggests that you interview a potential audience member for the instruction that can tell you about the environment, and maybe even someone that can show you what the ideal task function might be. You might actually be the expert that you can draw from, and that's totally fine. Actually, it will save you time if you're an expert, a subject matter expert in this field. But even if you think of yourself as a subject matter expert, it's going to be helpful for you to talk to someone else and get another perspective, because they might be able to fill in some gaps that you were unaware of was a problem for other people. And remember that these conversations you have can be brief. They don't have to be full-on hour-long interviews. I would never expect you to do that. So analysis is really just one piece of the puzzle, but it's what we're focusing on here in week 1. So we will continue to learn about the instructional design process throughout the duration of this course, but I wanted to show you your checklist for this week, which you may have already looked at a little bit, but you're going to read through the textbook chapters 1 through 4. I know it sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of white space and plenty of images, and you can just skim chapter 3 for ideas. If your book has not arrived yet, I'm going to have them chapters 1 through 4 posted in the content folder for week 1. So after that, you'll review job aids number 1 and 2, which are also in the content folder. Remember that these job aids are like cheat sheets that'll help you when you complete IDA number 1. There's one optional reading located in the supplemental readings folder. Your activities this week include the initial manic discussion post, which is due on Wednesday by 11:59 p.m. Your response is due on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Additionally, IDA number 1 is due by 11:59 p.m. Okay, so I think I've taken up enough of your time. I'm going to look forward to reading about the instructional problems you all identify. If you have any questions or concerns, just let me know. Thanks, and have a great day.